What is going on? No horsing around family. Zach Boyd at it again, giving out some grades for this incredible draft. But first of all, come on, hey, tip of the cap to Chris Ballard. What a great draft. Um, Overall, there's not going to be a lot of bad things to say in this draft. I think a really, really good, situation when you didn't have a first round draft pick to come away with this much talent. It was very, very clear, very, very evident that he wanted, you know, just extremely good, gifted athletes. We talk about that unique trait. Every single one of these guys tested, remarkably well. We'll go down the list. And we'll just start at the top. Alec Pierce. I'm a huge Sky Moore fan. Everybody knows that. So my heart got a little bit crushed there in that moment. That being said, still think it's a very, very good pick. Heard a lot of comps for him. Look at him like a Jordy Nelson type of guy, but faster. I think probably he's a little bit better with straight line speed than Nelson was. Probably not as polished when it comes to the intermediate route running. But I think at the end of the day, probably you know going from year one to year two with Alec Pierce is probably going to be a really big jump and a really big transition. I think he can help us, especially with the deep ball. And he has really, really, really good catch radius. He can come back and he can track that ball on that back shoulder. He can do some unique stuff when it comes to that pick. I give it an A minus. I think it's a very, very good pick, a very solid pick. Um, and that just the start, just the beginning of this onslaught that Chris Ballard had when it comes to getting athletes. Going into number two, Jelani Woods. I actually picked him on our final mock draft here on the live show. I picked Jelani to be, uh, I picked him to be a tight end in consideration. He just screamed Chris Ballard, and he tested as well as you can test for a tight end. I do think he can be an inline blocker, but he's a freak mismatch nightmare. And when you want to attack the middle of the field, you've now got a guy really that's so versatile. Give that pick an A. There's no question about it for the value. You had to come out of this draft with better pass catchers, youth, add to that room. I absolutely loved what he did right there. And then you just turned right back around, I guess, four picks later, and you went with Bernard Raymond. Raymond is a unique athlete. He's a very good pass blocker. And he can really he can maul some people around a little bit as well. Slight with the frame, can build that frame out a little bit. We all know Ballard likes those unique athletes because anybody who has a tight end background uh, tends to kind of translate into a flexible offensive lineman. I think he competes year one, day one for that position. I think ultimately they're going to find a way to get him on the field sooner rather than later. So I think that pick there, you got to give that one really an A plus because position of need. Also, I don't know if there's a better player, at the moment. I don't. I mean, he was really, honestly, in my opinion, I had like an early second round grade on him, not a first round grade, but an early second round grade. Um, Extreme value right there. So that turned out to be really, really good. And then he comes back, he trades back up, and he gets Nick Cross, who is just lightning in a bottle, man. I mean, honest to God. I mean, he really has that ability to just play sideline to sideline. Such a Chris Ballard player, and I love that he's adding depth to that room. He's getting youth. We faced injuries the last couple seasons, as well as Carter Willis would be in a contract year. I love the pick. I mean, I love the pick. I don't like it. I love it. I think it was a great pick. I think I would go right there. Um, that's an A for me as well. I know it sounds a little bit Homer-ish, but I mean that's an A for me as well. Then you go into day three. He selects Eric Johnson from Missouri State, defensive lineman, adding the depth. Don't have a problem with it. I think that's probably for me. That's the first B, but still, just a very good pick. He's going to add. He's going to never stop continuing to add to those trenches. I mean, that is something that he has always been. A big staunch believer in and adding to the trenches. So for me, it's a B, a really good player. I would have liked probably in this situation. I probably would have liked an interior offensive lineman. Maybe to take precedent over this position, but no gripes here, man. I mean, a really, really solid pick as well. And then he comes back and he gets Andrew Ogletree, tight end out of Youngstown State. And Chris Ballard, man, day three is always going to find some smaller school guys that he just sees extreme upside in. And when you want to talk about level of competition, you just made that room a lot more competitive. I mean, you take a 6th-round pick. I'm gonna give that pick a B minus, probably my lowest grade, just because it's a little bit of a luxury pick. Um, but no gripes. I mean, absolutely. He's a very good athlete. He's a guy he can block as well. I think he'll be fine. We'll go over to our next 6th-round pick, just right up the road, Cincinnati. It was very evident that Chris Ballard liked what he saw when he did that pro day in Cincinnati, and the scouts did as well. Curtis Brooks, defensive lineman. You double up on that D line. You add some depth and you add some real competition. There's going to be a good player that doesn't probably make our football team this year, just because of what you've done. So, I mean, that right there for me, I go with a B minus as well. Still a very solid pick. You're just rounding out your players. You're just throwing darts at the board, trying to hit big. Um, Finishes with Rodney Thomas, cornerback out of Yale, 7th-round pick. I don't mind that at all. You probably need a young guy that you want to look at, maybe a practice squad guy, maybe just a deep depth guy. And at this point in the draft, you're just looking for some traits that can kind of translate to your football team and hope that he can get with your coaching staff and you can add him, when it comes to developing that player. Very interesting, but my gosh, I mean, what a draft. What a great haul for Chris Ballard. I think this is going to go down as one of his best drafts that he's had we look back 2 or 3 years later. I think you're going to see a couple of these guys really stand out. I think Nick Cross is a starter. I mean, maybe not year one, year two, they develop him. I think he's your eventual starter. I mean, you got him and you got Blackman. I think he kind of takes over that role as the season goes on. I mean, you just really committed to getting back really good in that defensive backfield. Then you also, of course, you made the trade for Yannick, which was so big and it's going to change so much for our team in general. Couple that with the fact that you're going to play a little more press man concepts. This defense is going to look different. This offense is going to look more explosive. No doubt that Chris Ballard wanted to come away with some true, real playmakers, like some mismatch nightmares. And I think he's accomplished all of that. I mean, I do. And if you could end up getting a 3rd-round pick, in Raymond to end up being your eventual every day, your offensive lineman for the next however many years, that will go down as one of the best value picks that Chris Ballard has ever had. Now, I know one of the issues was the knee tendonitis. I think that's why he slipped a little bit. People were a little bit leery of those knees. Ballard did his research. Ballard said, no, we're good. He's a little bit older in the class, a little bit more mature. And I think him and Matt Pryor are going to just dog it out, honestly. I mean, I do. I think it's going to be, it's not a foregone conclusion, that Pryor wins that job for sure. I think he starts week one, but I think it's going to be a very, very close competition. And it also gives Raymond a chance to really learn the NFL game, fill that body out. I think if he could gain another 10, 12 pounds of muscle, it would really go a long way. But that being said, man, a lot to be excited about in Colts Nation. I'm excited about you guys. I'm excited about the comments because you always keep them coming. Like, rate, review, share, subscribe, and join the No Horsing Around family. Until next time, guys, peace.